the Jewish Channel's Week in Review. Libya's lone Jew is forced to leave the Jewish place in the Chinese food pantheon. Alan Dershowitz speaks about Israel and college campuses and more of the Jewish news that's changing your world right now in this episode of the Week in Review. Hello and welcome to the Jewish Channel's Week in Review. I'm Stephen I. Weiss. Could imprisoned Jewish spy Jonathan Pollard be released after more than 25 years in prison? The administration of President Barack Obama is set to give the matter heavy consideration soon, as Vice President Joseph Biden is inviting Jewish leaders to meet on just that issue. Pollard pleaded guilty on charges relating to selling intelligence to Israel for tens of thousands of dollars in the 1980s and received a life sentence in 1987. Since then, Pollard has refused to apply for parole. Israel admitted in 1998 that he was a spy for the Jewish state. In recent weeks, FBI and Justice Department officials have granted interviews with news media in which they claim that Pollard had offered to sell the intelligence to Australia and was rebuffed, and only afterward offered the intelligence to Israel. These revelations are being added to the fact that Pollard received payment from Israel for his intelligence to suggest that Pollard's motives were not altruistic support of Israel. The coming meeting with the vice president about Pollard resulted from a surprisingly brash response Biden gave in a meeting with several rabbis last month. At that meeting, the vice president was asked about Pollard and is reported to have replied, "President Obama was considering clemency, but I told him, over my dead body are we going to let him out before his time." Jewish leaders have been expressing a mix of outrage, confusion, and disappointment at Biden's remarks, prompting the scheduling of this new meeting specifically on the Pollard issue. And while Jewish leaders are wondering how the White House will treat a convicted spy, Israelis are upset with the administration of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for not attending a memorial for soldiers killed during the Yom Kippur War. Approximately 1/4 of Israel's fallen soldiers from that 1973 war are buried at the Kiryat Shaul cemetery, and 4,000 family members annually attend a memorial service there. But government officials were no-shows this year, owing to scheduling conflicts and delayed votes in the Knesset. Many government officials did attend a large memorial service at the National Cemetery on Mount Herzl. But if there are difficulties getting proper memorials for Israel's fallen heroes of today, fictional Jewish heroes are being vigilantly defended in Los Angeles. The Los Angeles Times issued a correction this week about the life of the fictional character of Ben-Hur, famously portrayed by Charlton Heston in the 1959 film of the same name. The newspaper originally referred to the character as a, quote, Palestinian nobleman, and an organized effort by Jewish readers sought to correct the historical record of the fictional character. The correction that ran this week read that the article, quote, described the title character played by Charlton Heston as a Palestinian nobleman. The character was a Jew from Judea who lived long before the place, now known as Palestine, was given that name. There's no word about whether the Los Angeles Times will have to correct its correction about the claim that the character actually lived. And while we're on the topic of fabricated Jewish heroes, a Jewish actress will be taking on the role of an alien woman with a Jewish influence. Israeli actress Ayelet Zurer is to play Superman's mother on the superhero's original planet of Krypton in a new film set to begin shooting soon. The history here is interesting, as the character of Superman was created by some of the many Jewish founders of the comic book industry, and fans of the character have long known that his name was taken from Hebrew words for God. On Krypton, Superman was known as Kal-El. Superman's father on Krypton was known by the name Jor-El, but provoking questions about whether Superman had a Jewish mother, Superman's mother on Krypton was named Lara Lorvan. Nonetheless, Krypton's version of a wasp will have an Israeli lilt, thanks to the actress Zurer. Zurer previously appeared in films such as Angels and Demons and Munich. But beyond Superman and Ben-Hur, there's a new definition of Jewish heroism being propounded by the Federation system, and it's raising some controversy. Cecily Saraski was in 11th place in the open online voting for Jewish Community Heroes, an annual competition run by the Federation system, in which individuals nominated to be listed are placed on a special website of the Federations, and then anyone can vote daily for as many individuals as one wants. But Saraski, who is deputy director of an organization called Jewish Voices for Peace, was removed from the contest by the Federations for being anti-Israel, because her organization backs the campaign of boycotts, divestment, and sanctions against Israel investment. In a blog post, Saraski noted that the Federations have allowed Chabad Rabbi Manis Friedman on the list, despite the rabbi's statements to Moment magazine in 2009 in which he said of conflict between Israel and Arabs, quote, "The only way to fight a moral war is the Jewish way, destroy their holy sites, kill men, women, and children, and cattle." The rabbi had later retracted his statement, saying he only meant it to apply to situations in which humans and holy sites were used as shields by terror leaders to keep Israel from attacking them. Freeman remains in the competition, and there's been no suggestion he might be removed. But while neither Sarasky nor Friedman had a particularly good shot at winning the Heroes competition, the person currently in first place, with 25% more votes than her nearest competition, is there because of her marriage to a convicted criminal. Leah Rubashkin is the wife of Shalom Rubashkin, the man serving a 27-year sentence for bank fraud after his kosher slaughterhouse in Iowa became the site of the largest immigration raid in American history. Shalom Rubashkin has been the subject of massive sympathy campaigns throughout much of the Orthodox community. The nomination for Leah Rubashkin ends with a statement, "We pray with Leah for the day when she will truly rejoice alongside her husband, Reb Shalom Mordechai." The nomination also lists her under the category of social justice. But moving on from the question of removing contestants from an online popularity contest to the very real issue of removing Jews from countries, the only Jewish man in Libya had to leave by military transport this week after being threatened by local citizens. The man had been working to restore Tripoli's main synagogue after the rebellion in Libya removed dictator Muammar Gaddafi from power. Libya had been without a single Jewish resident since 2002, when the last remaining Jew in Libya died. The community had more than 30,000 Jews at its peak in the 20th century, but they fled or were killed as a result of anti-Jewish riots, a movement that accelerated as Gaddafi came to power. When Gaddafi took the reins in Libya in 1969, he confiscated all the property of the remaining 100 Jews. There had been hope that the rebellion against Gaddafi would lead to a more Jew-friendly government in the North African nation. The National Transitional Council made international news when it invited the leader of the Libyan Jewish exile community to return. The Jewish leader, David Jerby, returned to Libya on October 1st after 44 years of exile. With the support of the government and local civic and religious leaders, Jerby got to work on the synagogue, hammering down a brick wall that had been erected to block the synagogue's entrance. Jerby declared it a, quote, historic day for Libya and said, "This is for all those who suffered under Gaddafi." However, Jerby's sense of Jewish freedom didn't last long. He was soon forced to leave the synagogue by armed men and went to stay at a hotel where he was essentially imprisoned by armed protesters outside. On the eve of Yom Kippur, hundreds of protesters gathered outside his hotel, carrying signs reading, "There is no place for Jews in Libya." The protesters then tried to forcibly remove Jerby from the hotel, but were stopped by hotel security. Jerby's military transport flight took him to Italy on Tuesday. But while the question of whether there will ever be a Jewish community in Libya remains open, here in America, celebrations of Jewish heritage from government officials abound. And one recent celebration came from a man who hopes to be a future mayor of New York City. Christian Needon reports.
In advance of the High Holy Days, Jewish community leaders were honored at a celebration of Jewish heritage hosted by Manhattan Borough President Scott Stringer at the Center for Jewish History. Stringer handed out plaques to the 4 honorees for their contributions to the Jewish community of New York City. Among them was Rabbi Eli Abadi of Edmond J. Safra Synagogue, who quoted fellow Sephardic Jew Emma Lazarus in his acceptance speech.
Jews, and I quote, "are the intensive form of any nationality whose language and customs they adopt. As a Sephardic Jew, I am proud to say that we have been an integral part of American life since before the days of the Declaration of Independence. We have contributed to its success in many ways, through the arts, sciences, industry, economy, political and spiritual leadership. As Americans and as Jews, we all share eternal values of freedom, justice, and the right to practice our religion openly and without any prejudices."
Open support of Israel was another theme of speeches on this night, only hours after the Jewish Community Relations Council of New York had organized a gathering of political and religious leaders outside the UN to voice opposition to a vote for unilateral Palestinian statehood. And when I asked Stringer what he thought should be on the minds of New York's Jews during the High Holy Days, Israel was at the top of his list.
First and foremost, Israel needs us now more than ever. I think we have to make sure that whatever happens in the Mideast, Israel is supported by allies in the United States, and I think we in New York City have a special obligation to make sure that we speak as one voice.
To see more from this celebration of Jewish heritage, please tune into the full broadcast edition of the Week in Review.
Thank you, Christian. Of course, when one talks of Jewish heritage in America, there's a strong connection to the cuisine of another immigrant culture here in the United States. I speak, of course, of Chinese food, and as Meredith Gansman found out at a Chinese culinary competition, there's even room for the kosher version.
It's a Chinese culinary competition, and for the first time ever, a kosher Chinese restaurant is competing. I'm coming to you from Times Square with a taste of the competition. Chefs from around the globe assembled here to slice and dice their way to victory. Inside a mobile kitchen stadium, these 36 chefs competed in 8 one-hour cooking rounds, with each chef cooking 2 dishes for the judges. But only one of those chefs was cooking kosher. Sam Chen Kwai, executive chef of Edenwalk Kosher Restaurant, is the first kosher chef to enter the competition, now in its 4th year. All of Chef Kwai's ingredients were certified kosher by the Orthodox Union. Elon Kornblum, a competition sponsor, writes about kosher food's versatility as president and publisher of Great Kosher Restaurants magazine.
That's really why I put together the magazine, to show that kosher can also be delicious, can also be upscale and fine dining, and also something that people can enjoy.
But does a kosher Chinese chef have a chance against those cooking without dietary restrictions? For more of the Chinese culinary competition, tune into the full broadcast version of the Week in Review.
Thank you, Meredith. In contrast to that story, there are some places in America where Jews are finding difficulty supporting their heritage: university campuses. Christian Neen reports on one man's advocacy in that arena.
Hundreds of Jews were drawn to Park Avenue Synagogue in Manhattan by the prospect of seeing Alan Dershowitz speak about anti-Israel movements on America's college campuses. And while there were plenty of proudly yarmulke-wearing older Jews in the audience, the night's focus was on helping college-age Jews spread a positive message about being Jewish and supporting Israel in a university environment. Dershowitz chairs the Step Up for Israel campaign, organized by Jerusalem Online University, and spoke following a short film called Crossing the Line. The film chronicles what the prominent lawyer and Harvard Law School professor sees as a disturbing anti-Israel trend.
And the truth is a very painful one on many college and university campuses, as we saw in this wonderful film. Every day, new red lines are being crossed. Every day, the movement from criticism of Israel to anti-Zionism to overt anti-Semitism on campus is moving in the wrong direction.
The former lawyer for Nelson Mandela during the leader's time in South African prison compared the vehemence of anti-Israel advocacy on campus to that of anti-South African sentiment during the height of international criticism of the country's apartheid policies.
And in all the campaigns against South Africa, there was never anywhere near as much hatred of real apartheid South Africa than there is today on college campuses against Israel. It isn't even close.
To hear more of what Alan Dershowitz had to say at Park Avenue Synagogue, please tune into the full broadcast edition of the Week in Review.
Thank you, Christian. That's all for this week. From all of us here at the Jewish Channel, be well. The Jewish Channel is available on cable: Time Warner Cable Channel 528, IO Optimum Channel 291, RCN Channel 268, Bright House Channel 330, Verizon Fios Channel 900, Cox Channel 1, Frontier Communications, and now on Comcast Cable in the on-demand menu under Premium Channels. For more information, visit tjctv.com.